Hyper-niched, highly scalable agencies are brilliant and just one of the many types of agencies that need client support. And we've worked with a number of agencies who've scaled up super quickly, and it's been awesome to see. Of course, there are good things and challenges with scaling really fast, but we like that high energy of this challenge. It's so fun to be a part of something growing so fast, and we're excited to chat with today's guest, Natalia. She's a client account manager on our team at Dot & Co. And just about 9 to 10 months ago, digital marketing was new to her, but something she always wanted to learn. So she joined the CAM Academy, which is our signature client account management training. She blossomed into a killer client account manager, and she's been working inside hyper-niched scaling agencies, and she knows a thing or two about what goes on behind the scenes. So in this episode, you will learn what a super scalable agency looks like, how client management looks for these types of agencies, tips for scaling, who you need to hire, and what kind of systems you need. So without further ado, let's get started and introduce you to Natalia.
Welcome to the Happy Clients Podcast, brought to you by Dot & Company. Whether you're a virtual assistant, an agency owner, or a client-facing account manager, we all deal with clients. Lucky for you, client management is what we do best. Now, let's dig in, chat CAM life, and have some fun along the way. Cheers to happy clients.
First guest
We're so excited. We have our first guest ever today, which is the best. And she's definitely one of my favorite client account managers. Natalia is here today. And Natalia, I'm just going to call it what it is. And I'm going to get some help with your last name. Why don't you just say it for all the listeners? Your name is Natalia
Dubonova.
Right.
Dubonova.
Perfect. So Dubonova?
Just remove the Y, pretend it's DU.
Exactly. You know what, I was doing that in my head. I'm like, but the why? Perfect.
It was an accident and it stayed.
We're going to learn about all that great stuff, all about Natalia in this podcast. So thanks for coming, Natalia. We're so excited to have you today.
Thanks, ladies. I'm excited as well.
So why don't you get started? Tell us about you and tell our listeners how you got to Dot & Co. as a client account manager.
So I am from Ontario, Canada, live just near Toronto, and I started my career in the corporate traditional marketing world. So I went from automotive to consumer packaged goods. And when I was in the consumer packaged goods industry, I transitioned into a client management role. So for about 4 years, I really saw that I just enjoyed speaking to people and building relationships with clients. And I felt like I was pretty good at it. Even the challenging clients, I was able to gain their trust and respect, which was awesome. So that's kind of how I really went into client management, but I always stayed in the traditional marketing route. And Taylor and I go a little bit back.
Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to bring that up, Natalia. I was like, hello,
way back.
the secret sauce.
Way back. So yeah, 8 years ago, Taylor and I met through a university program while she was at St. FX and I was a McMaster. And we actually were part of this program and our roles were called CAMs, which is
I forgot about that. I actually
They weren't. Did you create that?
Yeah, they were called campus account managers, CAMs.
Yeah.
And I was, so yeah.
You guys were the OGs.
Natalia was my boss.
Yeah. Yes. Just full circle. Like,
I know.
So yeah, so we were CAMs in university, campus account managers. I even came to Halifax and
stayed with my
at
parents.
Taylor's parents' house. So we go like full way back. And then and then recently, we stayed, thanks to social media, we stayed in contact for the last 7 years. And then this year, early year, I kind of saw what Taylor was doing. And so I kind of started to learn and figure out about the CAM Academy. So I joined the CAM Academy and now I'm taking advantage of my client management skills and have been learning about the digital marketing world.
Great story about Natalia. Like, of course, we never want to, wish harm on an entire world, but the global pandemic was maybe a key factor in putting us all together. She was, and I'll let you tell this, Natalia, but like trapped in Bali and going through the academy with like some pretty spotty internet and really like all these like really good things that like she must really like client account management because she's stuck in Bali on a different time zone with no internet, still going through the academy.
The first, like, I think our meeting for first client account management academy, it was like at 2 a.m. in Bali. And I was like, of course I'll wake up and stay up. And then I was like, absolutely not. Sorry, guys. I'm glad it worked out, but I definitely slept through that first meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. And like back then, that was in March. That was right at the beginning of the pandemic. But you were so new to this world. And now look at you, like not even the end of the year. And it's like,
Just
it's
shining.
insane.
Just say it.
Yeah, you're just shining. You star.
Shining.
And I think obviously the Client Account Manager Academy that we have is amazing, but it just shows that like if you really lean in and you learn and you kind of jump full in, there's a lot to learn, but there's also lots of places to go.
And Taylor and I have talked about this before, is that like it takes kind of this it factor, this kind of special person that really absorbs the information and pivoting and the flexibility and working remotely. And you definitely have that it factor for sure. And of course, we're so lucky to have you on our team. But yeah, who would have thought from those early Bali days with like blurry face and like in the dark and like, who is Natalia? And then now here she is.
Wearing the same clothes because I had 5 kilograms of worth of stuff, not even clothes.
Oh my gosh.
I guess just kind of the end of that story is that Natalia actually was living in China at the time and couldn't quite return. So she was kind of
shocking.
As this podcast is live, I'm currently in chat with Zendesk every day trying to get my stuff back.
So let's kind of get started. I know this episode is really focused around those scaling agencies that you have been a part of since you started here at Dot, and you've been working in some of these super fast scalable agency models, a few of them. So we want to learn from you, Natalia, what that client experience looks like inside these types of agencies. And what would you say kind of those main differences are between clients in this super scalable system versus, let's say, a high touch e-commerce agency?
Yes, I think there's a lot of differences, definitely. And the biggest one is these large agencies are very fast paced. It feels like I've been part of, I guess, 2 maybe in a way. And it feels like it literally goes from a high end, agency to a scaled agency overnight. Like that's how pieces come together and it just kind of skyrockets, I guess, in a way. And so I would definitely say once the agency scales quickly, a lot of things are changing very quickly and you have to be able to adapt to that change very fast. And I think that's where in a smaller high-end agency, you have a lot more time to create processes and think about, how to make things work better. Whereas when you get into a lot of clients, you're in the daily grind. And I would say that's kind of the biggest difference. And then it definitely makes a massive difference when you're working with 3 people versus like 15 people. And if you're in a small agency and you're working with the agency owner, you're kind of they're learning about you, you're learning about them, you're seeing how they work best. But when you become a team of 15 people, the agency owner has to start kind of letting things go in the sense of being able to adapt to that they're not in charge fully anymore. And then there's people doing things for them. So that it definitely is a difference and it makes it a little bit more challenging, but a lot more fun as well because you have a team that you're working with.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, what we've seen, like a lot of these agencies where we come in and, our role at the beginning is to be super client facing, building those relationships. But when they scale so fast, it just turns into this beast that's just like snowballing. And it's so cool to see. But for us, we're there to help pick up the pieces and make sense of everything and help ensure clients are happy. But our role kind of has evolved as these agencies scale.
For sure. Absolutely. And you start to no longer be that, like sounding, you're not that person anymore that's trying to help grow the business. You're now the person that's trying to maintain the business, which your role becomes very different.
Yeah, like we know it'll grow. It's proven, it's working. And then kind of those relationships change too, right? Like
For sure.
we have worked on these agencies together, Natalia, and we've actually, I've had relationships with kind of those people, those early on people, right? That I know their kids' names and wish them happy holidays. But now it's like evolved into this thing where people maybe even don't even expect that because they know it's kind of the big oiled machine that's working and getting results. And I think that's sort of the expectation here, but also have the support to kind of lean on. And when they do need a little bit of help, we're there to kind of provide that for them, which is awesome.
For sure. Yeah. Your role definitely evolves, and you potentially aren't a client account manager. You're more of a team.
Yeah, it looks different. And you can't maybe even, it's a little bit harder to call up, insert client's name here, call up Bobby Joe and ask her like, hey, like, what are we going to do with this? What is it? Like, it's more fast paced, right? So
Yeah,
it's just a different sort of way of managing clients.
for
So
sure.
great segue into what I wanted to discuss with you, Natalia, is the systems and the processes. Clients often come to us and their systems are, let's just say, they're messy. So we can all agree that dedicating time to SOP development isn't always top of maybe agencies' list. So this is a great way for us to kind of come in and streamline that process. And since you're kind of the process queen and getting into all those dirty details, I thought maybe you could kind of speak to that. So the technical side of client account management, I do find you pretty analytical, a little data driven, which is obviously a good yin to my yang sometimes when we're working together, and such a great way to kind of deliver on results. So yeah, I guess let's speak to that a little bit, like the systems and the processes and kind of getting those streamlined, and tell us about building it out and why agencies just really need those awesome processes.
Yeah, I'd say like we have to start these processes at client zero because I guess I've worked in two different aspects of I've seen an agency go really high from 20 clients to 50 clients, and I've also jumped into an agency that already had 70 or 80 clients. And so there's a massive difference in these two agencies, in the sense that the agency that I jumped to with 80 clients, the SOP system was in the agency owner's brain. And so, you physically were trying to figure out what you're supposed to do. And, you want to be the best CAM you can be for this agency. Obviously they're starting, but if there's no SOP system, if there's no, ways of working, then it becomes a really big challenge for anyone to join the team, whether you're a media buyer, whether you're a CAM, whatever your role is going to be. So I think for any agency owner, the minute you are starting your agency, the minute you get first client, just creating that Google Doc of being like, okay, FAQs, SOPs, like color coding. And that's something that I think I love doing. And then you come to a reality of like, oh God, we got to 50, 60 clients and that SOP isn't perfect. And that's where it's like, okay, yes, it's always going to evolve. It's always going to have new things. But if you can start that system very early on, it's a lot easier to hire new people and increase your headcount in employees, and be able to give this 12-page document and say, okay, here you go, like take the next week, happy to have questions. But it makes it a lot simpler for you to be able to hire really good people for your agency for them to work. So yeah, so I think that's kind of like a business Bible in a sense.
Having that in your back pocket is everything. Like it's so important, especially in these kind of bigger agencies.
For sure, yeah. And like as you said previously, we can't reach out to our agency owner over text and say, hey, like, how should I do this? Because they're no longer focusing on that aspect of the business. And then, so it's definitely really important to be able to go to one place, and even for the business owners to see the processes, right? So it's like you've started your processes, but obviously it's evolved because now you have 15 team members and you have people that are making decisions, not just you. So it's like, where can you go and see, okay, am I confident in the way things are working today? So I think, yeah, SOP is number one for systems and processes to have. I would say a CRM system is really important. So any type of system that's going to keep everything in one place of all the clients that you have. I think at the beginning, when clients have 3, 4, 5, and when agency owners have 3, 4, 5 clients, it's pretty simple to have a Facebook chat or a Slack chat and just keep all the conversation there. But the minute you start having 4 or 5 employees, the minute you start having 20, 30, 40 clients, and then all of a sudden there's one chat in Facebook, there's one chat in Slack, there is a CRM system, there's an email account, and there's the odd phone calls, you definitely can get lost in that, and obviously you can miss communication. So I think that to be able to find information in one place from the beginning, and of course it takes time, and it evolves in terms of what kind of CRM system you want, and that can always change, but being able to start with that definitely is key. So I would say that you could definitely run into a lot of miscommunication and misunderstandings if you can't find all that information. And as a CAM, it will take you a lot longer to find out the answer to the question when a client is angry, or
that written proof too, right? Or like, this happened on this date, and this is not that maybe you need proof, like it's not, court of law, but sometimes it might even get there. So we have a really great record. It's all in one place. You have all the information you need. People know exactly where to go to get it.
Exactly.
So systems and processes are so important, and it's definitely your jam, I would say. So in terms of, in thinking of these big agencies that are scaling and snowballing and bringing on tons of clients, which is great, but there's obviously some bottlenecks when there's big teams, tons of clients, some things that get in the way to success. So if an agency's listening now that's kind of going in that direction, what would you say are some of the bottlenecks they need to look out for?
Yeah, speaking to pretty much CRM, it's so important to have a lot of automation, I would say. And that's something that me personally, I'm not an expert at, and the amount of automation there is possible that I see, but I don't have the capacity to learn to do it because I'm trying to keep clients happy. But I think that's key for any agency that's getting to your 30s, your 40, your 50 clients. Like, automate, all those emails that can be automated, get to Zapier and throw all that stuff in, and just getting a team member that is very knowledgeable in how to make processes more efficient and effective. Because what I see from my own experience is we're starting with 5, 10 clients, and it's super simple to send that one email, it's super simple to schedule that one call, but then all of a sudden you get to 50 clients, and that super simple email times 50 is now a full 8-hour workday. So yeah, being able to, maybe it's not necessary at the very beginning, but once you're coming to a point where you're like, okay, I'm exhausting my energy into things that I know can be automated. I might not be the expert at it, but I could definitely find people that are capable of this, is very important. Then I think the next step is that when you know you need it, and when you do hire someone to give you an automated CRM system, having that communication. I think once you become a big scalable agency, communication is definitely lost internally because there's so much going on, and there's so many pieces that people are doing. I think having communication of who's doing what. So it's like, okay, hey guys, I hired someone to automate our whole system. Like, so it's now, you're no longer now, 3 people doing your job. You're now your company and your team, and you're trying to manage different pieces of the puzzle. And I think communication is very important. And I feel that it does get missed as soon as a company starts becoming something bigger. I think that's where I would say being able to understand who does what, who is in charge of what, and making sure that there is someone that's in charge of the big picture. Because when there's 3 people working on an agency, the big picture is pretty obvious, or it's pretty easy to focus on in a sense. But once you have a big team, you lose sight of focusing on the big picture because you're focusing on the short-term goals of how many clients do I fix within the next 8 hours.
Yeah, totally get that. And it's like easy to kind of check off all those tasks when your team's smaller, right? Like, sure, I'll do that. Sure, I can figure out automation. I can figure out tech, whatever I need to do. I have a little more bandwidth to do that. But on these bigger accounts, there's always something. So we can't spend too much time on anything, I guess. Of course, we're going to spend time and effort on those important things. But if there's a team member where you can kind of tap them in and tag you're it, then you have to lean in on that, because just utilizing your resources, right? That's what these growing agencies have, really great resources, and client account management is one of them, and then a whole bunch of other ones to kind of lean in on as well.
For sure. Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's a good point too, to just think of the scope of things, small versus big, right? Just what you can do. Those relationships are different. Why don't we try this? You can even talk to clients and maybe brainstorm, but everything has to be so streamlined when you're a little bit bigger, that this is how we do it. This is what we're going to do next. It's proven. It's working. This is our system. This is why you hired us, right? Some of it's mindset too, working with clients, which I often say that we kind of have to, train our clients a little bit too. So there's so many reasons why agency owners need a client account manager. And clearly we've been talking about them throughout this podcast, but let's really just talk about the dirty. What are client issues? Like what comes up in these client calls, these client emails? Like, why are people, how can clients usually get disgruntled in a bigger agency, right? It's not that one-on-one like we have with a smaller agency. They might even think you're a robot sometimes, right? So like they just kind of fire questions off and come in hot sometimes, and sometimes they don't. It's not all the time, but like, what are those common issues that clients often bring up and that we have the remedies for?
Yeah, I guess, the biggest one would say is definitely not seeing results. There's no agency that will never hear that sentence from a client. Mm-hmm. The biggest issue is definitely people not seeing results. And the business owners that are signing up for any digital marketing agency, they want profit tomorrow. And no matter how much you tell them on the sales call, on the welcome call, on the introductory call, on whatever you tell them, the first month is not about profit. You probably won't get your return on your agency fee in the first 2 months. They choose to not hear that, and they want to be profitable tomorrow. And I think that as a CAM, you are that punching bag, because you're like, well, and the amount of times, small and big agencies, that I've listened to sales calls, I've listened to every single call. I'm like, where did we tell them that we're going to be profitable tomorrow? And it's like nowhere. And unfortunately, and you get it. You understand why these business owners, sign up for these digital marketing agencies, because they can't do it themselves. So as a client account manager, you are really that punching bag that you're like, okay, well, we're not going to get you profitable tomorrow, but what is the plan and how do we do that? So I think that's the biggest issue. I think a lot of business owners that sign up for digital marketing agencies don't know a lot about digital marketing in the sense, and that's the reason they're signing up. But, the reason they sign up is because they've heard a lot of good things. They are really, they are believing in the brand that you have, or they read a case study where that one person went from 0 to 100 within 2 weeks, and they're like, well, that's what I need. And so they're putting a lot of investment into you, and what they don't realize is that investment is long-term and not short-term. And so I think that's another kind of issue that happens, is that they don't really understand the soft statistics of the world and kind of what we're working towards for the first, 3, 4, 5 months, but they just want the hard stats, which is the return on investment. So I definitely think that not knowing anything about, there's two pieces. There's people that know everything about digital, advertising, and there's people that don't know anything. And so it's, how do you balance these people of setting setting realistic expectations?
Yeah, the people who know it works and they're like, here, take all my budget, go for it, we get it. And then the people are like, have super small budgets, like that can be, I guess, difficult to deal with. But the good news is as a client account manager, you're definitely equipped with the tools, right, to kind of facilitate sort of those needs of clients, but also to really approach it in a really positive way. You said long term, right? This is what's going to be best for you, your business, your ad account, long term. If we don't test, why would we just throw your money away? It makes no sense. So it's good to have kind of people on your side like us that understand and can get them sort of accustomed to running ads.
For sure. Yeah. And I think also in terms of like these individuals that want results and they're not seeing it, I think the next part of a client issue that comes up is that when you begin an agency with 5 to 10 clients, you're very eager to be the best individual for them. And so you will jump on at every call, you will answer every email, and you will be there for them 24/7 in a way. But then all of a sudden you get to 80 clients and you can't answer even 50 calls, and you that attention to the clients, it changes. And I think the biggest part is that as a client account manager, supporting the agency owner in the way of setting boundaries once you get to a big business like that is very key. I think that agency owners at the beginning, right, they give out their phone numbers, they say, call me anytime, they'll give their Facebook, they'll give their Slack account. And so this relationship with the first 10 clients is great. And the kids' names and the holiday season, but after that, you definitely need to, as an agency owner, you need to set boundaries. And even as a client account manager, I think that's a big role for client account managers, is to set boundaries for the team and being able to be a punching bag for the team to say, you know what, this is out of scope, or this is not out of scope. And so being there for clients and making sure clients are happy, but also being there for your agency to making sure that the agency doesn't burn out within, the first month of scaling. So I definitely think that's a client issue, but also internal issue in a sense, agency owner issue and a client issue of being able to set those boundaries once you become a scalable business.
So aside from issues that come up and managing like a huge volume number of clients, retention is obviously super important for a scaling agency. If you can't keep your clients, what's the point, right? So what would you say, Natalia, what does that retention look like for an agency where there's tons of clients versus more that one-on-one custom solution e-commerce agency, for example? And do you have any tips or tricks up your sleeve to retaining clients?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest difference between like a small agency and a high e-commerce agency or a scalable agency, the biggest one is that in a small agency, you can get the agency owner involved right away, you can get the media buyers involved, and you can all jump in on a call with the client and save the client pretty much if the retention is needed. When you are with 80 clients, first of all, making sure that the communication is all in one place so you know what you're working with. But it definitely, you shouldn't be at a point where, if you were trying to save every single client every single day, you would run out of energy.
Yeah,
because
burnout. Yeah.
you would burn out in a heartbeat. And I think that's the biggest difference, I think, in small versus large agencies is that when you're in a large agency, obviously there's a reason you got to there, but I think you definitely need to be super confident in your business model. And I think that's the biggest one that I've seen in the two agencies that I've been in, when you are super confident in your business model. And of course, there's going to be things that are out of your control, Facebook taking over, the world shutting down, whatever it is, like those things are out of your control. But if you are able to be confident with everything that you can control in your business, and you can talk confidently to what you are doing, then the retention becomes a lot smaller, because you're no longer trying to fight for that one client to stay. You are actually choosing whether the client is a good fit or not for you. Whereas with the smaller agencies, obviously 6 clients, if that's your monthly, return, and that's your monthly livelihood, then losing one client really obviously makes or breaks it for you. And so you are putting in all your eggs in one basket for that week, and you're preparing and you're trying to figure out the strategy plan, and you're trying to save that client. But when you're in a bigger agency, that one client that's going to leave because he or she probably doesn't have the money, not because they don't believe in your in your business model, it doesn't hurt you personally or professionally in a sense. So I think definitely when you have scaled and making sure that your business model is top notch, that you really, not that you don't notice, you will definitely notice for 10, clients leaving, but it doesn't affect you. And you as an agency owner aren't questioning yourself like, oh, am I doing something wrong? Is my business model not making sense? Like, it makes sense. And it's just people out of their own needs can't stick around.
Even go back to what we said before, kind of those one-on-one relationships, and somebody leaves, and you're like, oh my gosh, my best friend gone. And then it's, another client is around the corner, or, who just left? Like, I don't even know. And that's fine too. It just looks different. And it's good to have that sort of expectation in your brain as an agency, as a client account manager.
For sure, yeah. And I think when you are such a big business, and when you can't physically have a one-on-one with each of these clients, you now have a different sense of responsibility in being honest and accountable for your business. Whereas before it was one-on-one, and you are fully going in and taking accountability for what maybe you did wrong or maybe what didn't go well. Now you're at a point where you're confident in your system, and you know that your strategy or your way that you're going to create these ads or whatever you're doing for your business, you know that it works. But now you have a team of 15 people, and there's going to be things that are going to fall through the cracks, or there's going to be things that are out of your control, like advertising not going well. And so I think being able to be an agency owner that's honest and authentic to its customers or to its business owners, it's going to be really key. It's key in both businesses, but you now have a sense of, you're no longer communicating your honesty to the clients one-on-one. You're communicating your honesty to people everywhere, and you're showing what your brand is. And if people truly believe and trust that you are doing what you can, and you have people that are going to vouch for you, it makes a massive difference. And so I think no matter how big or small the agency is, even for a big agency, if you have those 5 really loyal clients that are going to stick with you through thick and thin, that really is going to get you to continuously increase your clients in your business. But it's also going to lower people leaving, because the trust is there, the loyalty is there, the process is there, the model is there. And so everything kind of comes together, no matter what happens inside or outside of your control.
Totally. Well, Natalia, it's very obvious that you are the go-to client account manager, especially in these large scale agencies that are kind of thriving right now. And there's a reason why kind of you're leading all of those from our team. But if we're wrapping up here, I know there's a lot to unpack, but just thank you so much, Natalia, for kind of touching base. These are definitely wise words. We've learned a lot in terms of best practices and real life can an agency work. So maybe just as a pro tip, what is some advice you would give an agency owner that's getting started, maybe even in this sort of hyper niched, super scalable world or agency life?
Be confident in what you're selling. I think that the minute you are confident in your own business, the minute that you have numbers to back yourself up, and the minute that you are aware of how you want your business to work, the clients that are unhappy with you won't faze you. Because when you're not confident in your own business, when you're not confident in your numbers, you're going to become really reactive and defensive. And that's going to definitely lose brand loyalty or brand health, in the sense of, people aren't going to feel like they want to stay with you. So I think the biggest one is definitely don't be reactive or defensive once you become a scalable business, because clients are going to leave.
Yeah. Nature of the beast.
It's nature of the beast, exactly. And so it's going to happen. So as long as you are being authentic to your clients and saying, you know what, actually it's not working and it is on my side, unfortunately this didn't work in this market, or it didn't work for this product. I think it's best to cut ties, versus, saying, well, you need me, you can't get anywhere without me. So I think that's the biggest part. And then I would say internally, as an agency owner, once you start to scale and once you have a company, once you have employees, like, you need to really learn how to let go and trust people. So I think that making sure as an agency owner, you have a team that you can believe in. And that's
a really good point, Natalia, because, sorry to interrupt you a little bit, but because a lot of these agencies just kind of start with like a little, just a little agency baby. And, it is kind
right?
of,
sometimes it's friends. Sometimes it's like, oh, me and my buddy started this together, or me and my best friend started this together. And being able to let go, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of patience. And sometimes it doesn't work out with who you hire. So you have to jump back in and you have to be that media buyer cam and, fire burning individual. But once you come to a point where you're confident in your business, where you're scaling and you have a lot of clients, and then making sure that you have an internal team where you no longer are micromanaging, because that's going to definitely help you succeed if you let your team be creative in their work, if you bring out their strengths in them, and then just making sure that they believe in your business as much as you believe in your business, to have kind of a full circle of success.
That was amazing. I think in a nutshell, if any agency owner or client account manager is listening, you can really see kind of inside what one of these beasts of a scaling agency looks like. And there's tons of pros, tons of opportunities here. And I think, there's our role looks different in kind of a scalable agency, but it doesn't mean that there's not room for that client-facing success person. And clearly, Natalia, based on what you've told us today, it's a huge piece of the agency that's necessary to keep their clients happy, keep things moving, getting people launched, onboarded, and kind of being that huge piece to the agency for success.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously we have our processes on point. We have these processes that work in a huge scalable business or a smaller one-to-one client management agency, from small to big. And what we do is we kind of download this into agencies and customize them. And this is something that you can actually grab and import right into your agency today. So make sure you grab that on our website. It's www.dotandcompany.co/checklist. And you can get the exact checklist that Natalia is using in these huge scalable agencies. So thank you so much, Natalia, for joining us today. It's been awesome just getting, your brain dumped into all the other agency owners' brains as well.
Our first guest ever. Woohoo!
My SOP.
Yeah, your SOP in audio form. So it's been really awesome. Thank you so much to everyone who's listening. And I hope that you enjoyed this. If you're inspired to start a scalable agency, or if you have questions, reach out. We're here to help. And of course, share this with your friends on social media and rate and subscribe to our podcast. Until next time,
cheers! Happy clients.